Well, we've reached the end of 2018 and what an excellent year for movies this was. There are so many films I greatly enjoyed over the past 12 months, and I'm excited to tell you my 10 favorites. Which ones resonated with me the most? Which ones impressed me with their stories and filmmaking wonder? Well, let's begin with my number 10 choice about a legendary trip to the moon. First Man. Damien Chazelle has primarily been known for flashy music-themed movies, but he decided to show he could do more than that with First Man. While the ultimate centerpiece of the film is the famous moon landing in 1969, what truly makes this film work is seeing the trial and error that NASA went through in accomplishing the mission. You really get a sense of how much was at stake, and we also see the emotional effect this has on Neil Armstrong. Ryan Gosling is terrific, with a very subdued performance, while Chazelle's direction has a down-to-earth quality. Credit too to cinematographer Linus Sandgren and the sound team for capturing that claustrophobia of being inside of a space capsule and that uncertainty of whether they'll succeed. This ultimately becomes a celebration and tribute to the many people who brought forth a new age of exploration. And number 9 is further proof that Netflix has become a major force in modern cinema. Roma. Depicting a maid in 1970s Mexico City, I loved how pretty much the entire film, including this middle-class family, is told through her eyes. It provides a different perspective than most of us are accustomed to, and I was riveted the whole time. What's also impressive is how much is told visually and through the sound. The atmosphere of this house, the city, and the beaches is beautifully captured by Alfonso Cuarón and gives an immersive quality to this drama. I also have to mention Yalitza Aparicio, who allows us to understand Cleo's thoughts and motivations, sometimes without saying a word. The funny human moments, like a running joke with a car, work, as do the more heartbreaking scenes. It's on Netflix, so give it a watch when you can. My number 8 pick is a political film that came out at the right time, but still flew under the radar. The Frontrunner. Jason Reitman's depiction of the failed presidential campaign of Gary Hart asks an interesting question about journalism. At what point does investigative journalism just turn into tabloid nonsense? Through this theme, Reitman manages to jump between the various participants and spend enough time with them to understand their motivations. He takes a rather Robert Altman approach in directing the film by having the cameras sitting in on these conversations, all performed by a talented group of actors. Hugh Jackman switches on his charm, making it understandable why Hart was seen as a presidential frontrunner, while also portraying his foibles. The movie is smart to also not let him off the hook. It's a fascinating look at how this campaign derailed, and while the film was pretty much ignored when it was released last month, I hope it's eventually watched in journalism school. At number 7, I have a stop-motion delight from a filmmaker known for his asymmetrical view of the world. Isle of Dogs. I already talked about this movie quite a bit on my best animated movies countdown, but I think it's worth talking about again. This is pretty much Wes Anderson's love letter to both dogs' relationship with humankind as well as Japanese culture. The attention to detail is startling, and Anderson's trademark deadpan humor is also displayed throughout the film. Beyond the impressive stop-motion animation and production design, I was also invested in the characters, whether it was the many dogs populating Trash Island, or the young boy who lands there in search of his own dog. The story takes some unexpected turns and is not afraid of really testing these canines on this journey. Quite a number of animated films released this year show the unlimited possibilities of the medium, Isle of Dogs included. And number 6 is another Jason Reitman film, Tully. This celebration of motherhood features Charlize Theron in my favorite performance of the year, as she attempts to get through caring for her 3 children and husband too. Reitman and Theron perfectly capture that never-ending stress, and then when Mackenzie Davis's nanny enters the picture, there's something appropriately soothing about their conversations. Diablo Cody's screenplay is smart and funny, featuring her usual way with dialogue, while also properly developing these characters. My number 5 pick is another summer indie film, this one focusing on the current generation. 8th Grade. I cannot think of another movie that so perfectly captures the YouTube generation, those who grew up with social media being a major part of their lives. However, while you do have those modern elements, Bo Burnham still brought a universality to this story, portraying that awkwardness so many go through in that in-between period, after one feels they're no longer a child, but they're also not a teenager yet. Elsie Fisher is wonderful as the main character, navigating that careful arena of being sympathetic, but still with the occasional uncertainty and immaturity that comes from that age. And also worth mentioning is Josh Hamilton as her father. There have been a number of coming-of-age movies these past couple of years, and I think 8th Grade definitely stands as one of the best. And number 4 is the amazing return of cinema's most famous nanny. Mary Poppins Returns. From the moment the opening titles started playing, I felt like I was transported to the 1960s. It's incredible how Rob Marshall replicated the period's era of movie musicals while also creating a more than worthy sequel to one of Disney's most cherished productions. All of Mark Shaman and Scott Whitman's songs are catchy and delightful, while Emily Blunt and Lin-Manuel Miranda switch on the charm. It's clear how much respect everyone had for the first film, right down to the addition of a hand-drawn animated sequence. The production is excellently put together, with some triumphant choreography, the Lamplighters number being a highlight. However, there's also a poignancy to the story I greatly appreciated. I was all smiles for the entire runtime, and not a day goes by when I don't listen to the soundtrack. That's how you know you've made a terrific musical. My number 3 pick is a wild video game ride from one of the masters of cinema. Ready Player One. Steven Spielberg has long been a video game fan, and he brought that awe and curiosity for the medium into this ode to the technology that examines why we have such a fascination with escaping to other worlds. On a visual level, it is one of the most impressive achievements of the year, as he contrasts the future world outside with the virtual reality that is the Oasis. Yes, references to 1980s and other popular culture abound, but they're more part of the scenery. What truly captivated me was how these young people joined together to take part in this treasure hunt, and use these icons from the past to help them out. Spielberg also proves once again why he's one of the best action directors, as despite all the characters and imagery flying through the screen, he is able to make it all coherent. Finally, Spielberg's whimsy shines through in many a scene with a number of moments that made my heart soar. There are a few times when it feels like Spielberg is thanking the audience directly for partaking in his fantasies. And to that I say, thank you, Mr. Spielberg, for putting them on screen for us. And number 2 is the long-awaited superhero sequel about quite a fantastic family. Incredibles 2. Like Isle of Dogs, I talked about Brad Bird's latest triumph quite extensively in my Best Animated Movies countdown, so I'll try to keep it brief. Needless to say, Bird did an excellent job of showing that family dynamic with some slight twists here and there. As amazingly crafted and animated as the action scenes are, it's the character moments that make me love the Incredibles films. They add so much development, heart, and humor to this family, whether it's Mr. Incredible trying to reconcile with his daughter, or Elastigirl wanting to prove herself. The message about inclusion in a world where others are rejected just for being different is pointed, and the 1980s aesthetic from Bird, Ralph Eggleston, and the rest of the design team at Pixar adds a lot to the film's appeal. Brad Bird is one of my favorite modern filmmakers, and this represents another major success story in my book. And my number 1 favorite movie of 2018 is a horror film that uses our eyes, and most importantly, our ears, to maximum effect. A Quiet Place. From the opening scene onwards, I was constantly on edge. The setup presents this scenario properly with a real understanding of what has happened and what this family is dealing with. John Krasinski did an amazing job of directing this, especially the way it utilizes sound. I love when films use sound as a narrative device, and this is a movie where every sound has an impact because we know the consequences. The scenes are constructed so brilliantly and the pacing is so carefully edited. The film is 90 minutes and there's not a second I would add or take away. However, I also care deeply about the Abbott family. Each family member is properly developed, and the whole time I was really concerned about them. You see how each one grapples with these monsters lurking in the shadows, and knows how a tragedy in the first scene affects them. The acting from everyone is excellent, and their performances add tremendously to the suspense of the film. This is a movie that knows how to use locations superbly, and alright, the monsters were creepy too. A Quiet Place is my kind of horror movie, putting a heavy emphasis on character and suspense over blood. Anyway, that was my top 10 of the year, and I'm certainly looking forward to what 2019 brings. I'm sure I'll see many more wonderful films. Have a happy new year, everyone!